Now with the summary done, difficult words done, explanation of the poem done, we come to the last part of this chapter, and that is the question answer. Small is beautiful. There is a very famous book. A German writer called Schumpeter wrote this book way back in 1920-21. The title of the book was Small is Beautiful. In this book, he tries to say that anything done in a small scale gives better results. Whether small dams, whether small societies, small colonies, small nations. And so everything done in a relatively small scale is more productive. I'm sure this small poem is no different. Like the book Small is Beautiful, which itself was about 80-page old book, but made a landmark impact on society. This poem by Pablo Neruda, though small, had a far-reaching impact on the readers, and you are no different. So we go on to the question-answer session, and the first question that we have is, which is the exotic moment of the poet refers to in this poem? Exotic मतलब मैंने आपको बताया विलक्षण, बहुत आकर्षक पल, अतुलनीय क्षण, वो कौन सा है जिसके बारे में पोएट चर्चा करता है? That exotic moment will be when the whole world will be silent. When man exercises total silence, total absence of movement, your absence of total movement. Such a moment will free man from unnecessary rush, noise, harmful actions, violence, etc., etc. Imagine for that counting of 12, यदि ये चीज़ें ना हो रही हों, जिसमें वायलेंस ना हो, किसी तरह की भागम भाग ना हो, कोई शोरगुल ना हो, तो वो दुनिया एग्जॉटिक नहीं होगी तो क्या होगी? That very moment, he can take time, he can give time to rest, he can give time to think for himself, he can give time to look within and introspect, and also avoid all kinds of unmeaningful activities or harmful activities. All kinds of such activities that disturb peace, that disturb tranquility. So this moment will be the exotic moment. What does the author refers to while talking about the salt gatherers and the fishermen? This is question number 2. What does author refer to? What does he mean by talking about these? The answer is that Pablo Neruda is talking about violence of any kind and asking us to refrain, to stay away from any kind of violence for that brief moment. If that happens, then there will be no harm being done to animal world. साथ ही he also wants that it will also give time to salt gatherer. It will also give time to the people to look within and identify the factors which are causing dangers to himself and for which the mankind himself is responsible. अपने स्वयं को जो नुकसान पहुंचा रहा है उसको बताना चाहता है. And thereby, by citing these examples of fishermen and salt gatherer, he intends to say that it is time that man thinks the consequences of his doings before doing anything. Man thinks about the consequences of his own doings before doing them. The question number 3, why does the poet feel that we should not be single-minded? कभी ऐसा क्यों लगता है कि हमें एक मत का नहीं होना चाहिए? Why does he feel that? Because he says we are single-minded about one thing, and that is to make life move. जिंदगी को चलाने के लिए हम सब, पूरे आदमियों का, पूरे विश्व के लोगों का एक ही उद्देश्य है, जिंदा रहने के लिए कुछ करना. इस मामले में हम सबका उद्देश्य एक ही है. How to keep our life moving. Everybody is busy doing that. Everybody is busy pursuing his business and following this goal of survival, and that is bad. The poet says that if we sit quietly and rest for a while, then perhaps all the individuals will find answer to himself. All the individuals will find answer for the sadness in the world, the sadness that has enveloped the world, the sadness that has come from pollution, that sadness that has come from violence, from characterlessness, from fall in values, and so on and so forth. So he says to be single-minded is not good. Let us give time that will help us in having better understanding of the causes of sadness. The next question from this chapter is, justify the title Keeping Quiet. शीर्षक को जस्टिफाई करें, सिद्ध करें कि एक शीर्षक सही है. As you can read from the whole poem, all along the author is emphasizing on one point: the importance of quietness, the importance of being quiet. Because he feels that if everything is quiet for a while, it will give time for us to analyze, ruminate on the causes for the troubles in the world, to understand what ails the world. दुनिया को क्या चीज़ें बिगाड़ रही हैं, इसको सोचने का समय आदमी को मिलेगा. ये कब मिलेगा? यदि वो क्वाइट है. So he is appealing to the masses that be quiet, because keeping quiet has its own advantage. It gives time. And so from that perspective, the title is absolutely befitting for the lines that he has written. A very important question now from this poem, and that comes from part 2 of this poem, where he says, please do not be confused. The question is, how does stillness not to be equated with inactivity? अर्थात meaning differentiate between inactivity and stillness. The poet says, I don't want to have any truck with death. Whatever I have said does not have any trucks with death. Explain. This line is the turning point of the poem. He gives clarifications that by not doing any of these things, what I have asked you, you are not being dead. You are being inactive for a while. That's all. He says life never comes to an end on earth. Life keeps coming. Rebirth, cycle of birth and rebirth. It goes on. This cycle of birth is being taught by Pablo Neruda in this line when he says that I don't want to have any trucks with death and life keeps going. जीवन चलता रहता है. When everything appears dead, he says, life throbs under the earth crust. When everything looks dead, you will find that something has reappeared. When things look dead, plants look dead, animals look dead, new life surfaces from the crust of the earth. जमीन से नया जीवन सामने आता है और इस प्रकार ये जीवन की साइकिल चलती रहती है. Crust means जमीन के अंदरूनी हिस्सा. Therefore, stillness should not be interpreted as total inactivity. Stillness should not be implied as, stillness should not mean to you total inactivity. No. Stillness simply being at a place for a while. The poet refuses to relate himself, connects himself with death. He clearly says that please do not treat it as death. I have no trucks with death. That's very clear. Next question. Why do men become sad? How can this sadness be overcome? To overcome मतलब दूर करना. I have overcome the difficulties. I have overcome the sadness that was there. मैं अपने को दुख से अब दूर कर लिया हूँ. अपने से दुख को दूर कर दिया हूँ. So to overcome. आदमी दुखी क्यों होता है? And how can he overcome? That is the next question. उदासी की बात करते हैं Pablo Neruda. And in that context, this is the question. Or we can also say, how might a huge silence interpret the sadness of man? How might a huge silence interrupt the sadness of man? Not interpret, interrupt the sadness of man. मनुष्य के उदासी की व्याख्या. Now it means what? It means that man's own doings are cause for his sadness. In his rush for life, survival, he is forgetting, he is overlooking the fact that he himself is responsible for this sadness which has enveloped the whole world. He must know that he is himself the creator of his own disasters. Disasters मतलब खतरे. Disasters मतलब आपदा, खतरे और आपदा. जो भी समस्याएं आ रही हैं, प्राकृतिक आपदाएं, उसका निर्माता आदमी है, भगवान नहीं या कोई और नहीं. या ये प्राकृतिक आपदा का अर्थ ये नहीं है कि ये प्रकृति ने किया है. प्राकृतिक आपदा के कारणों पर जाएं तो इट इज ऑल मैन्स क्रिएशन विच हैज कॉज्ड unhappiness, sadness among us. His own actions are threatening him with death, with question of survival and struggle for survival, causing him to be sad. And so author says further, only a huge silence can interrupt this sadness. Means be quiet, keep quiet, be motionless for a while, stand still, and in the process give time to yourself. Once you do that, you will realize that you are doing the wrongs, that you need to correct your path, and you will surely correct it, provided you give time to yourself to think. Silence is the only solution, he says, to avoid unnecessary dialogues, speeches, fights, wars, etc. ग्रीन वॉर्स आर बीइंग फॉट. व्हाट इज ग्रीन वॉर? पर्यावरण के लिए जो लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं. वॉर्स आर बीइंग फॉट फॉर फायर, गैस. और इन सब के लिए जो भाषणबाजी है, इससे बचो, कोई फायदा नहीं है. सर्वश्रेष्ठ उपाय इस सैडनेस से बचने का, इस उदासी से बचने का, द बेस्ट वे टू गेट आउट ऑफ दिस morose feeling, from this sadness, unhappiness, is be quiet for a while. That is what he says. The next poem, the next question. What does the poet ask the fisherman and the man collecting salt to do? What does he ask these people to do? What does he want to convey to them by doing this, asking this? पोएट फिशरमैन से और सॉल्ट गैदरर को क्या कहना चाहता है, क्या चाहता है उनसे, क्या नहीं करने के लिए कहता है, और ऐसा करते हुए वो उनसे क्या अपेक्षा कर रहा है, मछुआरों से क्या अपेक्षा कर रहा है, उनको क्या बताना चाहता है. द आंसर इज वेरी सिंपल. द पोएट आस्क्ड द फिशरमैन and all those who indulge in violence, and men who collect salt, and all those people who are busy doing work, not to do that for a while. कुछ क्षण के लिए सभी को वो किसी भी तरह की गतिविधि से रोकना चाहता है, किसी भी तरह की हलचल से रोकना चाहता है. By salt gatherer he meant those who are working for their survival. सारे काम करने वाले मजदूर, श्रमिक, जो भी विभिन्न क्षेत्र में जो लोग भी काम कर रहे हैं, कुछ क्षण के लिए रुक जाएं और अपने हाथों को देखें, अर्थात अपने स्वयं को देखें और सोचें कि मैं जो कर रहा हूँ ये मेरे लिए कितना नुकसानदेह है, और मेरे लिए का अर्थ है मानव के सर्वाइवल के लिए, मानव की खुशी के लिए. Secondly, what does he want to convey? The poet wants to convey through these examples the message to the humankind that whatever we are doing as on date is something like causing harm to ourselves. हमको लग रहा है कि हम एक अच्छी दुनिया बसा रहे हैं, अच्छी दुनिया बना रहे हैं. विज्ञान के युग में वैज्ञानिक आविष्कारों की मदद से हम न जाने कहाँ से कहाँ पहुँच गए हैं, क्या से क्या कर बैठे हैं. मोबाइल, नेट, इनकी तरंगे, इनका फ़ायदा लेकर हमने ना जाने मानव सभ्यता को कितना आगे पहुंचा दिया है. बट ऑन द कॉन्ट्रैरी, लेकिन ठीक इसके उल्टा हम ये भूल रहे हैं ऐसा करते हुए कि हमने फ़ायदे कम नुकसान ज़्यादा किए हैं अपने. बाय डिस्ट्रॉइंग ट्रीज़, बाय कटिंग ट्रीज़, बाय किलिंग एनिमल्स, बाय डिस्टर्बिंग द इकोलॉजिकल बैलेंस, बाय डिस्टर्बिंग द radiation, by causing problems in the radiation, ultraviolet rays, ozone layer, temperature rise, melting of snow. All these are our creations. And why did we do that? Not to do harm to us, but under the thinking that these our actions will benefit us. So give time to yourself and you will realize that whatever actions you have done in the past have actually done more harm to you than good. Next question. What does the poet say about different kinds of wars? You remember he has spoken about certain kinds of wars in para 1. What does he say about them? And what alternative does he suggest? What is the poet's attitude towards war? युद्ध के प्रति उसका क्या नजरिया है, क्या रवैया है, ये भी एक सवाल है. The answer is very simple. Green wars. He talks about green wars, whereby he meant man at war with environment, disturbing the ecological balance. Then he talks about harmful gases, emanating poisonous gases. Don't forget the Bhopal gas tragedy of 1984-85, which killed over 3,000, 4,000 people in Bhopal at one gas leak and caused health damage to over 1 lakh or 2 people in Bhopal. And such incidents have happened in many parts of the world. Gas wars, Chernobyl in USSR, and many, many more examples of gas leakage which have caused immense damage to human civilization, human masses in large number. So he talks about that. And then he also talks about wars with fire, where thousands of people die of fire. And in the process he says that no one remains alive at the end to rejoice the victory, to celebrate the victory. And so Pablo Neruda says that it is my advice that man should rather wear clean clothes and walk hand in hand with his near and dear ones. हम लोग इन सब से दूर रहें, हाथ में हाथ मिलाकर चलें, छाया के तले चलें, शांतिमय माहौल में रहें, where there is tranquility, total calmness, where there is total calmness. Our hands are clean, our clothes are clean, our thoughts are clean. If we do this, we will feel at peace with not only ourselves, but we'll feel peace with everyone, and the world will be a better place to live. The poet condemns wars. He attacks wars or warring attitude. Of any kind of war, he says, is not worth. They should be stopped at once. There is a famous quotation also that says, there can never be a good war and a bad peace. लड़ाई कभी भी अच्छी नहीं हुई है, किसी भी लड़ाई का अंत अच्छा नहीं रहा है, और कभी भी शांति बुरी नहीं रही है. So writer says, bring peace, think of peace, work towards peace, and avoid war at all costs, be it the war of green wars, be it gas wars, be it wars with arms, or any other kind of war, including fire. The next question, how is the total inactivity on earth in the winter months full of life? On the one hand, total inactivity in the winter, but that is the very time when the world is full of life. Very interesting question. सर्दियों में पृथ्वी पर कुल निष्क्रियता जीवंत रहती है. Or we can put it the other way, this question, how can there be life under apparent stillness? Apparent, ऊपर से दिखाई देने वाला, सतही रूप से स्थिर दिख रहा है, लेकिन there is life. How does poet prove it? With regard to this, the poet's answer is, life actually never ends, never stops on earth, even after apparent stillness or total inactivity. The seeds germinate, giving rise to new crops. The newly born grow up, replacing the old ones. these seeds remain dormant, शांत अंदर बैठे रहते हैं. In the mother earth womb, and during winter they come out, they germinate into plants in the spring, and with that we see new life coming up, celebration of new life. And so apparent inactivity must not be taken as total death. Apparent inactivity, apparent stillness also have life underneath. उसके नीचे भी जीवन है. The next question, why shouldn't we speak in any language? Author says in one of the lines, we must not speak any language. So any language in inverted comma. Why should we speak? Why should not we speak in any language and not move our arms so much? By speaking in different, the answer is, by speaking in our languages, we are making sure that the society remains divided. Because we communicate in our own language, making it difficult for other language people to understand. And so we remain divided. And at the same time, we must not move our arms. That means we must not do any activity that can cause damage of any kind, whether by gathering salt, whether by killing animals, causing violence, whether by cutting trees, and what not. So we must stay away from these two things for a while. And if we do that, we will have a better world, because that will give us time to introspect. The question is, what will counting up to 12 and keeping still help us achieve? What will counting up to 12 and keeping still will achieve? क्या मिलेगा इससे यदि हम 12 तक गिने और निष्क्रिय रहें? उत्तर है, it will give us time to pause. It will give us time to relax. It will be very relaxing moment that will bring peace to our mind. And if it gives pause, then we will think twice before we do anything, before we act upon anything. And when we think twice before we act, we tend to do less harm to anyone. It is a fact that most of the troubles, most of the wrongdoings in this world, they are results of first thought activity. They are results of being in a hurry. They are product of the rush, and they are product of no second thoughts. So therefore, keeping quiet for those 12 seconds, counting up to 12, and being still will help us gain back our moorings. Moorings means our poise. हमारी जो अपनी जगह है, हम वहाँ पहुँच जाएंगे यदि हम कुछ समय चुप रहें तो. और हमारी जगह से का अर्थ है जहाँ हमें रहना चाहिए. हम अपने को वहाँ पाएंगे यदि हम चुप रहते हैं तो. Second last question. Do you think the poet advocates total inactivity and death? To advocate means क्या उसका वह विचार करता है, प्रस्ताव करता है, समर्थन करता है? किसका? टोटल इनएक्टिविटी और डेथ का? No. He is very clear. In para 2, right in the first line, he says, don't be confused. He says, I am not talking about total inactivity. I am not talking about death. I am talking about stillness. Because if you are still, underneath is the current of new life blossoming. He doesn't make it, he makes it very clear. that he is totally against, with no trucks, with death or inactivity. He says that stillness should not be equated with total inactivity. Stillness simply means cessation of hostility. Cessation मतलब to cease मतलब समाप्त होना, hostility मतलब शत्रुता, किसी भी तरह की शत्रुता की समाप्ति stillness है. और rather I would say that is for him stillness means being composed for a while, being at your own place and composed for a while. And so if we are still, we are not hostile, we are less harmful to every other thing that is around, and we will think twice before we act. The last question is, what is the sadness that he refers to in the poem? कविता में कवि ने कौन से उदासी की बात की है? What is that he refers to in the poem as sadness? By sadness, the answer is, by sadness the poet implies the violence, all the negative things which are taking place around the world, and killings and such other things which are harmful to human society's existence. And so he says that it is this sadness which needs to be removed. And further he adds that this sadness can be removed by human beings only because they are the cause of this sadness. And so with this, the question answer to this poem is over, and a beautiful poem, a short poem, but many questions, probably and as many number of questions as the lines are in the poem. We end up here and hope that by reading this poem thoroughly, you all will become a better man, a better citizen, a better global citizen. Why do men become sad? How can this sadness be overcome? To overcome मतलब दूर करना. I have overcome the difficulties. I have overcome the sadness that was there. मैं अपने को दुख से अब दूर कर लिया हूँ. अपने से दुख को दूर कर दिया हूँ. So to overcome. आदमी दुखी क्यों होता है? And how can he overcome? That is the next question. उदासी की बात करते हैं पाब्लो नेरूदा. And in that context, this is the question. Or we can also say, how might a huge silence interpret the sadness of man? How might a huge silence interrupt the sadness of man? Not interpret, interrupt the sadness of man. मनुष्य के उदासी की व्याख्या. Now it means what? It means that man's own doings are cause for his sadness. In his rush for life, survival, he is forgetting, he is overlooking the fact that he himself is responsible for this sadness which has enveloped the whole world. He must know that he is himself the creator of his own disasters. Disasters मतलब खतरे. Disasters मतलब आपदा, खतरे और आपदा. जो भी समस्याएं आ रही हैं, प्राकृतिक आपदाएं, उसका निर्माता आदमी है, भगवान नहीं या कोई और नहीं. या ये प्राकृतिक आपदा का अर्थ ये नहीं है कि ये प्रकृति ने किया है. प्राकृतिक आपदा के कारणों पर जाएं तो इट इज ऑल मैन्स क्रिएशन विच हैज कॉज्ड अनहैप्पीनेस, सैडनेस अमंग अस. His own actions are threatening him with death, with question of survival and struggle for survival, causing him to be sad. And so author says further, only a huge silence can interrupt this sadness. Means, be quiet, keep quiet, be motionless for a while, stand still, and in the process give time to yourself. Once you do that, you will realize that you are doing the wrongs, that you need to correct your path, and you will surely correct it, provided you give time to yourself to think. Silence is the only solution, he says, to avoid unnecessary dialogues, speeches, fights, wars, etc. Green wars are being fought. What is green war? पर्यावरण के लिए जो लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं. Wars are being fought for fire, gas. और इन सब के लिए जो भाषणबाजी है, इससे बचो, कोई फायदा नहीं है. सर्वश्रेष्ठ उपाय इस सैडनेस से बचने का, इस उदासी से बचने का, द बेस्ट वे टू गेट आउट ऑफ दिस morose feeling, from this sadness, unhappiness, is be quiet for a while. That is what he says. The next poem, the next question. What does the poet ask the fisherman and the man collecting salt to do? What does he ask these people to do? What does he want to convey to them by doing this, asking this? Poet फिशरमैन से और सॉल्ट गैदरर को क्या कहना चाहता है, क्या चाहता है उनसे, क्या नहीं करने के लिए कहता है, और ऐसा करते हुए वो उनसे क्या अपेक्षा कर रहा है, मछुआरों से क्या अपेक्षा कर रहा है, उनको क्या बताना चाहता है. द आंसर इज वेरी सिंपल. द पोएट आस्क्ड द फिशरमैन and all those who indulge in violence, and men who collect salt, and all those people who are busy doing work, not to do that for a while. कुछ क्षण के लिए सभी को वो किसी भी तरह की गतिविधि से रोकना चाहता है, किसी भी तरह की हलचल से रोकना चाहता है. By salt gatherer he meant those who are working for their survival. सारे काम करने वाले मजदूर, श्रमिक, जो भी विभिन्न क्षेत्र में जो लोग भी काम कर रहे हैं, कुछ क्षण के लिए रुक जाएं और अपने हाथों को देखें, अर्थात अपने स्वयं को देखें और सोचें कि मैं जो कर रहा हूँ ये मेरे लिए कितना नुकसानदेह है, और मेरे लिए का अर्थ है मानव के सर्वाइवल के लिए, मानव की खुशी के लिए. Secondly, what does he want to convey? The poet wants to convey through these examples the message to the humankind that whatever we are doing as on date is something like causing harm to ourselves. हमको लग रहा है कि हम एक अच्छी दुनिया बसा रहे हैं, अच्छी दुनिया बना रहे हैं. विज्ञान के युग में वैज्ञानिक आविष्कारों की मदद से हम न जाने कहाँ से कहाँ पहुँच गए हैं, क्या से क्या कर बैठे हैं. मोबाइल, नेट, इनकी तरंगे, इनका फ़ायदा लेकर हमने ना जाने मानव सभ्यता को कितना आगे पहुंचा दिया है. बट ऑन द कॉन्ट्रैरी, लेकिन ठीक इसके उल्टा हम ये भूल रहे हैं ऐसा करते हुए कि हमने फ़ायदे कम नुकसान ज़्यादा किए हैं अपने. बाय डिस्ट्रॉइंग ट्रीज़, बाय कटिंग ट्रीज़, बाय किलिंग एनिमल्स, बाय डिस्टर्बिंग द इकोलॉजिकल बैलेंस, बाय डिस्टर्बिंग द radiation, by causing problems in the radiation, ultraviolet rays, ozone layer, temperature rise, melting of snow, all these are our creations. And why did we do that? Not to do harm to us, but under the thinking that these our actions will benefit us. So give time to yourself and you will realize that whatever actions you have done in the past have actually done more harm to you than good.